Welcome to today's episode of the FinTech Focused podcast, where we explore how AI-driven financial tools are reshaping personal finance management. With data showing that over 40% of individuals struggle with effective money management, apps like Clever are using AI to simplify financial planning and personalize it to each user's needs. Today, we are joined by Leather's CEO, Maame Abremah Quarm, to discuss their AI assistant, Lady AI, which is revolutionizing personal finance by tracking spending, promoting smart saving and investment habits, and delivering tailored insights to help users take control of their financial futures. The FinTech Focus podcast is proudly brought to you by Start OA in collaboration with the Africa Discourse Channel.
A few months ago, my team and I have been having conversations around throwing light on some of the leading trends across the fintech market in Africa. And we can only share what is happening in the market if we speak to the people behind some of these innovations. So we came up with a FinTech Focus podcast that drives conversation around the latest trends across the fintech market, from what is being built, investment trends, regulatory trends, and any other thing that is happening. And I'm excited to have you to discuss something that is pretty closer to us and is a bit dear to my heart. And I'd want to continue from a conversation we were having earlier about 3 years ago. Everybody was talking about financial inclusion, and it was everyone's strategy to make financial products accessible to people across the continent. But now we are at a place where people can have access to financial products and services, but they cannot have access, they are not economically empowered, right? And when people think about fintech, they think fintech is just payments, but fintech is beyond payments. That's why fintech is financial technology, financial services, and the other product and services that it offers to people. It's not just payments, but even with payments, we've not really scratched the surface. Like, you still can't send money from Ghana to Ivory Coast and vice versa seamlessly, right? So I'd want us to, from your perspective, what trends are we seeing when it comes to the personal finance ecosystem or the wealth tech ecosystem? And just tell me what you're seeing in the market.
I think now we're seeing a number of fintechs emerge. What I have seen has actually interestingly been a shift in strategies from the incumbents. So I've seen a number of different institutions like banks, asset managers actually launch their own platforms, which are more so fintech platforms as well. So they allow their users and their customers to access their different financial products. You also then see the upstarts like myself, who are trying to do some cooler versions of that and really bring financial services to people, but in a way that also meets them where they're at in terms of their different things like their financial goals, their literacy level. I think in Ghana, it's still a little nascent, to be honest. A couple doors down in Nigeria, there's a whole bunch of wealth techs that allow people to save, invest in both local and international asset classes, even allows them to use digital assets as well to perform transactions, or also as a store of value as well. And I think that in Ghana, we're just catching up to those trends. And there's a couple of players in this space that are trying to deliver those solutions to customers in this market. I think you're right, though, in the sense that we've talked about financial inclusion for so long. You say 3 years, I can remember this at least for the last 10 years. Everyone talking about financial inclusion and banking the underbanked or the unbanked.
The unbanked are never finished.
And I think that for us at Ladder, we really started from a perspective of hearing that narrative and believing in its merits, but also feeling that, okay, it's not just enough to include people and give them access to financial services, but technology can actually also be an enabler to allow them to take fuller advantage of these services.
Yeah.
And so we started from a fundamental mission to accelerate economic empowerment in emerging markets, where that means using digital platforms to actually give people data and insights as well as to what is the best ways to take full advantage of these services that are available to them.
That's interesting. I mean, you hit on something very important, and I'm going to like expand on it. And I think I told you earlier that I used to use a lot of budgeting apps.
Yeah.
I think it's relatable to a lot of people. You want to see whether how healthy you are financially in terms of your financial lifestyle. You're spending and you're not like you're on a spending spree and you're not controlling how you're doing that. Then you go into that space of using multiple Excel sheets. It's not working because there's a discipline side. Then you now download all these apps and it's not working. And I've come to realize that there's also the cultural bit of it. And I mean, what are we seeing changing? Because I told you last time I met someone that randomly hanging out with a person and we're talking about apps that could help us budget and do stuff like that. And he could even mention ladder and just ladder. So that shows that you guys are doing something right. And I also want to understand how you guys understood what was wrong, how people were doing it wrong, and how you're transitioning that into how people are building habits, and not just the technological side, the social side, the discipline, and etc., and translating that into becoming not just financially included, but to becoming economically empowered. Because if just also give you some few insight, now a lot of people are clueless as to where to put their money, where to invest their money. They don't even know where to save because of what is happening in the economy, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, what did you guys do right? And how are you bringing these products closer to the people that matter most?
I think the number one thing that we did right was really having our ear to the customer and really understanding customer data before we started. So in its earliest versions, I thought of Ladder as more of a digital bank.
Okay.
And then we went to the market. I probably did about 70 actual interviews with people over Google Meet. I did a survey, just trying to pull together what are the challenges that people are having with personal finance. And it was everything. People were struggling to transact. They weren't happy with the UX and the experience of their banks. They didn't know where and how to save and invest. They didn't think they even had enough money to do so. They weren't tracking their expenses. It was all just, there was this sense that when it comes to personal finance, people just weren't doing anything or much to really take advantage of their finances. I mean, we'll all just get that one Joe's one day that's like, I need to get serious, right? And then you download some things, you try the Excel sheet.
2 days.
And it's just not working.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was important that we really understood what were the pain points. And I think the 85% of the people that responded to our polls said that the one thing that would help them would be someone else doing it for them and someone else teaching them. So that, like, the light bulb went off that said, how can we simulate that experience, right? And then as we went on, we also built with the data and the feedback from our customers. Yeah. So our expense management feature is the hottest one. And it was in such high demand that we actually even switched around our product roadmap. So there was a couple of other things that were meant to go out before that. But we realized that no, people really want this. And so let's bring it. It wasn't even the most perfect version, but we really wanted to get something out there. So I think having the data from our customers and our target audience, and then also actually being agile and iterative in our development approach really helped. Yeah. And then in terms of things like building better habits and reinforcing them, for us, the one thing that we've realized is you can't give people too much work to do. You can't give it has to be as simple as a few taps and a few clicks to really get people to do it, because no one will tell you that I don't want to make more money, grow my money,
Yeah.
or have better habits, but it is really the time and the cognitive load required to implement those things. And so that's why it was really important that for us, our platform focused on one, consolidation, which is aggregating various financial services across spending management, saving, investing, and then also intelligence, which is, okay, now you have all your money in one place.
Yeah.
Who are you as a person financially? What are your habits? What are your goals? How do you get from one step to
To another.
the other? Exactly. And that's why we've also seen interest in Lady AI, who is our essentially a personalized financial assistant who, because she has an overview of your data, is able to guide you to make those right decisions for yourself. Yeah.
Interesting. You answered a question I was going to ask, because I mean, over the past year, over the past year, I mean, we've seen the whole AI craze,
Yeah.
and I kept thinking about financial inclusion and financial empowerment and how AI is going to transform financial services and going to make finance work for people.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you've mentioned what Lady is doing, but can you give us a trend of what is happening across the financial services currently, and what you also foresee the future of financial services looking like?
Yeah, for sure. So I think you even touched on something in your earlier points where you said people don't even know where to put their money. They don't know where to save or invest, especially here in our parts of the world where, inflation is soaring, depreciation is just skyrocketing. And so one key use case that we've seen is even being able to understand things like your risk appetite or your risk tolerance, and also be able to point people to different assets that match their risk tolerance and
Yeah.
also the capital that they are willing to invest or save, whatever the case may be. So I think I see a trend in different fintechs adopting this approach where they're actually embedding different AI chatbots in order for their customers to be able to interact and then figure out the best ways to take advantage of their platform. Now, I think the approach that we've seen has usually been some version of integrating with an open AI model or a
Yeah.
llama or something like that. For us at Ladder, it's been a little bit different because we realized very early on that they are very limited in their function when it behaves like that. So for us, we adopted an approach of proactiveness and reactiveness, where that basically means that with oversight over your data, the AI system should actually be able to say something to you. So
Yeah.
not just a prompt-based interaction
Okay.
where you as a user have to come in and type a question,
Yeah.
but actually just creating interactions where it's proactively giving you nudges, insights. You are over your budget and this is how you can adapt to it to come under control.
Yeah.
Spending was a little crazy this month, let's try a different strategy,
Yeah.
things like that. And what we found is that for that approach, you can't just take a straight on LLM approach. And so we have done things like having a multi-agent system where we have different agents that are specialized for different things. So you can have one that's specialized for investment management, one that's specialized for financial planning, and they all work together in a system. And aside from that, also, not everything is an LLM job. Some things, you can just have algorithms that understand these things and feed it all into a system
Yeah.
that works for the user. So for the end user, they have the experience of an assistant, but you have a more sophisticated tech that's able to actually meet their needs. And I think as we go forward in the industry, the companies that specialize in AI systems are going to be servicing the financial services
Yeah.
industry. What I have learned doing Ladder is that it's actually very difficult to do both at the same time. So we've had to actually separate those teams so that we have one team that's working on the AI stack and one team that's working on the fintech stack.
Yeah.
And I think that those that really want AI to be fully embedded in their solution might have to adopt this approach, or they'll have to probably outsource it and purchase from providers.
Yeah.
I think I see AI really impacting things like risk assessment and risk modeling, being able to actually build users, diversified portfolios across multiple markets. You
Yeah.
don't just have to be Ghanaian and investing in Ghanaian assets, but you can invest in assets from Kenya, from the US, from China, and being able to really do that as is comfortable for your appetite. I also see it being applied in things like alternative credit modeling as
Modeling,
well,
yeah.
and decision making
Yeah.
on customers. So I think that it will impact the industry, not just for customers, but also even for the financial services providers as well, to make decision making for both parties smoother and more streamlined.
Absolutely. I mean, and in all this, there's one big question in the room, like the
Yeah.
quality of data, right? That we are using to train these models,
Yeah.
and I mean, and also the consistency of the data, because the more you feed in the model, the more it's able to give you quality output. And like as I was saying, there's this our issue of discipline where we are not able to even put quality data or like our quality spending or financial information into to fit platforms like you to
Yeah.
be able to give us the quality data that you need to be able to make this tailored financial predictions for users like
Yeah.
us. How do you think how can that be tackled in terms so that at the end of the day you are providing close to precision financial advice for people. So someone knows, okay, well, if I put my money here, this likely how much I'm going to make, or it's able to help me make like
Yeah.
this good financial decision. So how do you think that can be tackled?
So honestly, I think a big part of it is also going to touch open banking, and it's also going to touch both the institutions and the regulators, creating an enabling environment for access to transaction data. We have, not to brag, but the most accurate model, transaction data enrichment model, that's able to accurately predict where people spend. So depending on what your narration is or where you spend,
Yeah.
we can tell you spent on groceries or shopping, etc. And that is the kind of nuanced data that we need, structured and even unstructured, to be honest, to be able to make correct models and profiles of people. So I do think we've always seen Ladder as more like open fintech because we try to aggregate products from everyone and
Yeah.
transaction data from everyone. And I think that in order for us to be able to do this smoothly, efficiently, and to the benefit of the consumer, there's definitely going to need to be an opening up of that. In Nigeria, I think they've started already with their own sort of policy frameworks for open banking. I think Ghana too is just probably on the bend. Soon enough,
Yeah.
we'll see some advancements there as well. But I think that really will impact the quality of data that businesses like ours have to be able to serve our customers' needs.
Good. I think our users should actually check our open banking episode. I think it was our second episode.
Nice.
Yeah, so
With Adam.
Yeah, with Adam, and I mean the insight you shared, because I mean let's think of it this way: if currently if I bank with, let's say, Bank A, and I'm going to bank with Bank B, Bank A has already taken my financial information. I've performed transactions over and over again with Bank A. I go to Bank B, I have to start that process all over again, right? And in terms of consistency, I doubt how that looks like, especially on the technical side of implementing like these AI models. But also with open banking, where these data banks are communicating with each other, where you have one single financial information and it cuts across, it creates a level of consistency and reduces even latency.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the data output, and that makes us reach or attain that close to precision finance.
Yeah.
Because as you're saying, finance should work. Finance should work, and it should make sense for people. And we are heading towards a future where AI is going to like really change how we access this product or how we interface with this product, right? And for us to do, we need to make sure that the fundamentals are very, very solid.
Exactly.
And that has to do with like policies like open banking.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, restructuring current regulatory dynamics to suit what the future of AI could look like. And I've spoken about regulation, and we are going to talk about regulation because I also want to understand when it comes to your industry, there are a lot of challenges, right? I mean, some I can spot for you, but I can see the consumer challenges, adoption, and stuff like that. And there's that regulatory bit,
Yeah.
and also there's that economic bit, right? Because if the government, if the economy doesn't perform, you wouldn't have good enough products to list on your platform, because you deal in capital market products, making these consumers have access to some of these products, right? So there are a lot of factors spilling all over, and also the because your product is also in a gray area. What does regulatory also look like for you, and how you're navigating those challenges?
Yeah. I mean, I was telling you before is that in Ghana, fintech is payments. Fintech equal payments, nothing
Yes.
else. So it's been an interesting journey. I think how we have navigated it has been partnering with incumbent institutions.
Good.
We've always been a technology first company, and we're not trying to be a financial institution. We believe that they have their role and they do their jobs well. And so we've looked to partner with banks, asset managers, broker dealers, so that we can deliver and aggregate their products and then also use their compliance frameworks as well. Aside from that, we've also been engaging with different regulators. I think Ghana is making some steps. So we have things like the digital sandboxes, for example, that are meant to create more of a test environment for new innovations like ours to be able to get some scope of what potential frameworks would look like. I would say, though, in terms of actual policy, we're still quite early because at the end of the day, in order to have a thriving fintech ecosystem, you do need products and business models with various use cases, right?
True.
So you have your Flutterwaves and your Piggyvest, but Piggyvest is not a PSP.
True.
Piggyvest will use a PSP in order to deliver their services to their customers. And that then gives your Flutterwaves, some parts of their revenue. And so these are the types of things that we need to be able to actually stratify and create frameworks for, so that we have different players that can actually thrive within this ecosystem. And we can also scale some of our players, right? It would be very lovely to see a startup come out of Ghana, conquer Ghana, and then go to other markets.
We want to see that.
Exactly. The way that other startups, they win in their markets and they come here, like we're just bare for the taking.
Yeah.
And so I think in terms of the regulatory side, we have just, taken the long route of one, working with incumbents, and then two, engaging with the regulators, trying to sort of break down our business model for them to understand and figure out what path do we chart forward. Yeah.
Interesting. So I also want to touch on how the economy impacts your industry, how these trends. I mean, we are seeing inflation soaring high. We are seeing the currency volatility rates above cedi to the dollar is crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, and all these things affect how you deliver your product and services, and it also shapes consumer spending.
Yeah.
Because the economy needs to be right for people to be able to afford these products and services, and also the debt exchange program. And because you play a bit in those markets, I also want to understand how these factors impact how you are able to deliver your products and services.
I think they've definitely had an impact on the products that we've chosen to prioritize. So when we first started, for example, we focused on US short-term treasuries and portfolios domiciled in the US. Now in Ghana, we're moving away from bonds, and we're focusing on things like treasury bills. There's also a couple mutual funds that actually track indexes like the S&P 500, but they are city denominated and they are housed here. So I think those things have given us a new perspective on what to offer to our users so that it's also attractive to them.
Yeah.
And they don't feel as though, okay, my money is going to burn. And it's been hard. I will be very straightforward. It's been very difficult, because now the term investment in Ghana is quite
Scary.
sensitive. It's quite scary. Exactly. A lot of people don't even want to hear that word.
Yeah.
And so you have this unfortunate situation where people feel more comfortable when they feel that, okay, these assets are not even in Ghana. It's not touching anything Ghanaian city related. Let me put my money in dollar. But what we want to do is kind of bridge the gap. So I think I was saying this to you earlier. For us, as we expand into other markets, we also want to be able to be an aggregator for those markets. So you can be in Ghana and maybe invest in a Kenyan mutual fund, for example. As we're bringing all of these things together, we want to be able to give people as many options for diversification as possible and say, okay, you can do the Ghana, but you can also do others. And this is how you manage and hedge your risk.
I mean that's very interesting, and I like the multi-country approach to making people have access to like multiple asset classes and not restricted to what is currently here. And I'm looking forward to see how that actually plays. And I mean, because if I'm in Ghana and Ghana, like the bond market is down and it's too risky for me to make investment, I should be able to put my money where it could work.
Exactly.
Right. And if it works in Kenya, I should be able to do that.
Yeah.
And I think this is something that a lot of people would want to have access to. And last time I used to get a lot of people asking me, I mean, well, it's because of where I work and what I do. A lot of people asking me, I have money, I have 10,000 cedis, I have $10,000, I have $100,000. Where do I put my money? And you can't put your money in. They don't want to put your money in bonds because the bond market, they are scared that there's zero confidence in the market now.
Yeah.
So if what should a scenario, for instance, picturing a user like me with such a problem, how am I able to, how do you think I could tackle it or I could approach it differently? I mean, leveraging platforms like what you guys are offering. How am I able to make that 10,000 or that 20,000 work
it's funny because we've even had people contact our customer service and ask us questions like that, and we had to say to them, we do not have the jurisdiction to give you an answer. But that's where platforms and tools like Lady come in, because if you went on ChatGPT today and say, I have $100,000. Where should I put it? I'm sure she'll just give you some options as to, okay, you can consider A, B, C, D, E assets. And for a lot of people, that is the starting point. That is where they come from. I used to work in another fintech that was doing securities trading, for example, and people would also reach out to us and ask us those questions. And sometimes as well, people would even say, I want to give my account to somebody else so that they can manage the accounts for me. And because they have someone that they trust, who they want to, give access to invest for them. And so going back to what I said, a lot of people, 85% said somebody else doing it for me, somebody else that is a plug. And I think that those are the applications and use cases where we can see AI, especially personalized AI, that understands your unique context start to take. So understanding things like your risk appetite, your time horizons, what are your liquidity needs? Do you think that you will need this anytime in the next year, 5 years, 10 years? All of those things inform the kinds of investment decisions that you will make. And through personalization, you can actually then get answers to those questions as well.
Yeah, I think that's pretty interesting, and that's like a good problem to have as a business. Like, I mean, and it's sad that, I mean, you have people looking to access a service and you are willing to provide a service and you can't provide a service because you don't have the jurisdiction to. I mean, it's my wish that we are able to see more clarity in regulation, and we are able to extend these products to some of these people that matter. I mean, definitely the regulator has its own mandate to make.
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
You can't just allow any product to
of course
go,
because they could tell you to go and bet on like a shitcoin.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, well, and if it goes wrong, the regulator has.
Exactly.
So And sometimes I get to understand why the regulator slows innovation, so that we don't get into that bubble of, having to do everything, and
Yeah.
a lot of people get bent. And I think it's based on learning from, previous activities that happen in Ghana,
Yeah.
like the looms and the likes. But anyway, yeah. So
No,
I
but
think,
on that point, I do think in terms of being able to provide the assets, I
yeah,
think that's a more straightforward path. And I think, for us, what helps is creating a platform that it has the assets and it also has the personalization.
True.
So I'm not just telling you, okay, based on your profile, the S&P 500 will suit you,
Yeah.
but I can actually just provide you that asset. And you can even say to lady, automate this for me. And it will just every month, whatever days you choose, do that. So that kind of gives those types of clients some at least freedom to understand that you do have these options available to you. So just like they will come to you and ask, you can tell them, okay, put your money here, but how? How do you do it? Where do you find it?
Yeah.
We see ourselves as the one-stop shop.
And that's, that pretty works. And I mean, sometimes users or people just, like, we are too tired handling a lot of things. Like,
Yeah.
we are handling life.
Yep.
That's why people put money in banks, because they don't want to put their money. They don't want to have that headache of having to, like, put their money somewhere and having to, look at what the interest rate is, look at where this is.
Yeah.
They just want their money in one place, and at the end of the year, how much am I making? So that's why people see government securities as the
Yes.
most, because it's less headache. At the end of the year, I know I'll get my whatever on it, and I'm good to go.
Yeah.
And platforms like Lady excites me, and I'm looking forward to what skill looks like for you guys, because especially the cross-country skill, and how people could diversify their investment across not just multiple asset classes in country, but
Yeah.
across the continent. And yeah, I think we are getting closer, and I have this thing I do on the show where I asked if you had one wish. If you had one wish, what would that be? When it comes to, if you have a magic wand to things around in the fintech market, what would that be like? What would that look like? You just have a magic wand. You have one opportunity, one
Just
chance.
one?
Just
I don't
one.
get 3 wishes.
No, please, just one.
I would say definitely regulation around consumer fintech.
Yeah.
Specifically to Ghana, I would say definitely regulation around other use cases for consumer fintech that are not payments.
True.
100%.
And that brings me. I think it's a conversation that we need to drive
Yeah.
at a policy level, because I think the current financial market has been modeled, or the regulation or the current regulatory regime has suited the payment industry,
Yeah.
which makes it a bit difficult for players in other markets in other sectors to have that level of clarity to grow. And I think this is something that, and I'm happy there are platforms like the initiatives like the Sandbox that caters for some of these things. But I still feel that as we grow, we are able to broaden what we are able to cover other financial
Yeah.
services, and make finance work for everyone. And we didn't I didn't really ask what you were doing from the get-go, and I would want to know who Maame is and what Ladder is, because people have been hearing Ladder from the start to the end. So I'd want you to tell them who you are and what Ladder does.
So my name is Maame Abremah Quarm. I'm the founder and CEO of Ladder, incorporated in Ghana as Ladder Technology Systems Limited. Ladder is basically a digital platform that allows you to manage all your money in one place across your expenses and investments, with assistance from a personalized AI assistant.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much for having you. And
Thank you very much for having me.
I think we need to have a part two of this where we'll talk a bit more around regulation and the macroeconomy and
Yeah.
how that looks like in terms of how financial services are delivered into the future. So I'll definitely hit you up and
sure.
looking forward to having you.
Always available for
All
you.
right. So thank you everyone for joining. Thank you everyone for joining and see you in our next episode. Listen to our podcast, download it wherever you find your podcast. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
And that wraps up today's episode of the FinTech Focused podcast. If you enjoyed the conversation and want to hear more from the leaders driving Africa's financial future, be sure to subscribe and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Don't forget to share this episode with your network. Thanks for tuning in.